Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlicker, shills, debt slayers, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks. I'm a useful idiot. Welcome. And so, the great mass deportation has begun. The first thing I want to say about it is, of course, Trump is honoring his promise to do this, and 70% of Americans support this. But one thing that's notable, of course, is the media is really playing it up and making a lot more drama out of it and using a lot of hyperbole. And this whole mass deportation by Trump is completely politicized. And so they're going to use it to demonize Trump some more. And as I pointed out in previous videos, mass deportations have been a norm in America. And I did a whole video on Eisenhower and his Operation Wetback to mass deport 1.3 million Mexicans back to Mexico back in the 50s. And just like Trump, he used military tactics and military support in order to carry that off. And as far as I know, it wasn't politicized and considered such a hot button issue then. And then we also find that under 8 years of Obama, we had record levels of mass deportations, over 3 million under Obama, and you could hear crickets chirping. There was no outrage, there was no politicization of it, and there was no mass hysteria. You got a free pass on all his mass deportations. But here we are. Trump is making good on it. Apparently, there was, as promised, there was a huge raid in Chicago. Over 1,000 people were rounded up. And notable in Chicago, of course, that they refused to participate. So this is all federal offices. And we're finding all kinds of offices and enforcement agencies of the U.S. government being used in these mass deportation efforts from all these different agencies. So they've dug up the manpower to carry this off. But as pointed out, Chicago police themselves are not participating in this deportation. I find that really curious that a lot of these sanctuary cities, in spite of all the increased costs to their budgets, these staggering increases in costs, and then the cost of handing out all these freebies, and then all the pushback from the local populations about all the money being spent and all the handouts being given, that they're not willing to participate. And that also goes with the rising crime wave and all the heinous crimes that we're finding from migrants. You'd think cities like Chicago would be the first in line to participate in these deportations, but they're not. So this is another example of how politicized this has been. And then in Colorado, 50 Venezuelan gang members were arrested. They were easy to find because the documentation of them has been splashed all over YouTube, so everybody knew where to find them and where to go. And then apparently we've had efforts in Atlanta, Los Angeles, and Austin as well. Of course, Austin will participate, and Atlanta will probably participate. The fact that there's immigration raids going on in LA is going to be a little problematic because Gavin Newsom, of course, has claimed that he's not going to participate in these programs and he's going to challenge Trump's efforts. But that said, once again, Los Angeles, you'd think, be one of the first in line with a staggering increase in their budget and the crime wave that we see down in California. So the whole idea that they're going to buck this over political issues is really pretty stunning. But nationwide, 956 have been arrested, which doesn't seem like much, but it's just the beginning of this. And a couple of side stories that are interesting. Apparently, Venezuela said they want their migrants back. And I find that really amusing in some ways because, of course, as Trump has pointed out, and seems to be true, Venezuela is one of the countries that got rid of a lot of their criminals, their gang members, and people from their prisons and insane asylums and sent them to the U.S. And now they're saying they're more than happy to get them back. So that's an interesting side story. And another one, of course, this whole saga that opened with Colombia. Colombia has been very cooperative in taking back a lot of migrants flown back into Colombia, even during the Biden administration. Something around 450 flights were done. That brings up an interesting point too about the fact that with the Biden administration, there's commercial planes, and that's another distinction where we're using military planes under Trump administration, which is a lot cheaper than using commercial flights. But the whole fact that uh, commercial flights were flying out of Venezuela to bring migrants in, and then commercial flights were being used to deport them and send them back all at the same time. So that's the kind of logic we see in our government. But this whole story about Colombia unfolded very quickly. They denied um, a handful of deportation flights coming into Colombia, and then Trump immediately threatened them with sanctions and a 25% tariff. And at first they were pretty belligerent about it and said that they're going to put tariffs on U.S. goods. And we're actually a fairly large trading partner with Colombia. And it didn't take more than a day for Colombia to acquiesce. And now they're agreeing to take all these flights from the U.S. So Trump's hardball tactics seem to be working. And I've had theories about the idea that a lot of these tariff programs are just to put Trump in the U.S. in a stronger negotiating position. That might even include tariffs with Mexico and Canada, because we certainly don't want to harm the economies of Canada and Mexico, two of our largest trading partners. So these threatened tariffs might be just about negotiating a stronger uh, negotiating position. But there's been 90 deportation flights already, 48 to Guatemala, 14 to Mexico, and 8 to Colombia. So we're getting off to a slow start. And as the head title in my video talks about the fact that it seems like small potatoes so far, 1,000 across the country, and we've got 15 million to go. And there's a lot of heavy costs involved in these operations. Some cities are going to participate with their own police forces. Some cities will not, but it's going to be an ongoing operation, and I'm sure it'll be going on the entire 4 years of the Trump administration. Um, and apparently it will pick up speed, and they even have quotas. The Trump administration is asked for quotas in arrests of illegals in cities all across the country. So this is serious business, and like I say, the fact is most Americans support this. Trump promised to do this. He's going to play hardball, and he's finding ways to work around the fact that a lot of cities are not going to be as cooperative as others. And Holman has been particularly using strong wording about, if he gets obstructed too much, he'll take legal action against these cities. And inevitably, we're seeing stories of people being caught up in the dragnet, people that probably shouldn't be deported. And so we're going to see a lot of those stories being highlighted because, as I mentioned, this whole thing is politicized. So they're going to focus in. They're not going to focus in on 50 vicious gang members from Venezuela being sent back. They're going to focus in on unfortunate individuals that probably shouldn't be deported. They're getting caught up in this huge dragnet. So we're going to see a lot of media drama and a lot of outrage from the liberal base as we move forward with this, and that's inevitable. But there's not much that can really be done about it. A lot of states, including mine, Washington State, are already taking legal actions against Trump. But in the end, he has the upper hand, and he's delivering what the American people have asked for. So it has begun. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.